happy Mother's Day to some very essential people. Moms, you are essential. There wouldn't be an us without you. That's how essential you are. Now, I know dads are essential as well, and we're going to celebrate you in June. We're going to have an amazing Dads Fest, and hopefully we'll be back on campus by Dads Fest Day. But we want to celebrate all the moms and grandmothers and single mothers and spiritual mothers, and we're going to have an amazing day of just honoring you, because the Bible tells us to honor those to whom honor is due, and moms, you're due honor. Now, I also want to share with you, if you really want to understand moms, just ask their kids. And a Christian school did that. They did a survey of their elementary students, and they asked them some questions about their moms. And the children answered the questions as only children can. And let me just share with you the questions and some of their answers. Here was one. Why did God make mothers? One child said she's the only one who knows where to find stuff. Another, mostly to clean the house. Another, to help me get born. Smart kid. Question number 2. Why did God give you your mother and not some other mom? One answered, we're related. It's true. Another, God knew she likes me a lot more than other moms like me. Question number 3. What kind of little girl was your mom? One answered, I don't know because I wasn't there, but my guess would be pretty bossy. Okay, another answered, cute and funny. That had to be a girl. Question number 4. What did your mom need to know about your dad before she married him? One child answered, his last name. Another, she needed to know his background, like is he a crook? Does he get drunk on beer? A third answered, does he make at least $800 a year? That's really important. Question number 5. What is the difference between moms and dads? One child wrote, dads are taller and stronger, but moms have all the real power, because that's who you got to ask if you want to sleep over at your friends. Another, moms are magic. They can make you feel better without medicine. Moms are magic. And one more, one answered, moms know how to talk to teachers without scaring them. Difference between mom and dad. And last question, what would it take to make your mom perfect? One child answered, on the inside, she's already perfect. Outside, I think, some kind of plastic surgery. Okay. Another said, diet. You know, her hair, I dye it, maybe blue. And one more, a child answered, nothing. She's perfect just the way she is. And you are. The biblical word for perfect doesn't mean flawless. Nobody is. There's no flawless mother or father or child. The only flawless one is God. But the biblical word for perfect means perfect for what it was created for. Exactly fitting for the intentions and design that God had in mind. And that's what you are. In the same way that a hammer is perfect for driving in a nail, or a screwdriver is perfect for tightening a screw, moms are perfect. They're perfect for being the one who gives birth to their children and helps raise them and loves them and trains them. And grandmothers, spiritual mother, you are perfect for the assignment and reason for which God created you. And for that, we honor you on this very, very special day. Now, again, we're going to have a couple of songs of worship. Our band and worship team, they lead us. And I want you to sing along with them. Let's have an amazing experience today in God's presence, because we can experience Him anywhere that we are. Jesus had this conversation with a Samaritan woman, and she said, well, you know, the Jews say you have to worship in Jerusalem. And He said, there's coming a day when those who worship God will worship in spirit and truth. And that means anywhere you and I engage our hearts in spirit and truth, we can experience God's presence. So I want to challenge you right now, wherever you are, sing along with our worship team, and let's enter His gates, remembering His faithfulness.
the joy and the strength to lift up my hands and sing. I enter the gates with nothing but thanks. I wanna magnify your worth. I wanna bring you more than words. I enter the gates, come reckless with praise. I bring a heart that wants you first, all for your glory. Your glory. My feet on the battleground, my weapon will be my sound. Oh, I will not be silent. My song is my triumph. Sing, I enter, and I enter the gates with nothing but thanks. I wanna magnify your worth. I wanna bring you more than words. I enter the gates, come reckless with praise. I bring a heart that wants you first, all for your glory. Your glory. Sing, my soul will sing, my soul will make this place an altar, make this place an altar. Sing, my soul will sing, my soul will make this place an altar, make this place an altar. Sing, my soul will sing, my soul will make this place an altar. I'll make this place an altar. Sing, my soul will sing, my soul will make this place an altar, make this place an altar. And oh, I enter the gates with nothing but thanks. I wanna magnify your worth. I wanna bring you more than words. I enter the gates, come reckless with praise. I bring a heart that wants you first, all for your glory. I enter the gates with nothing but thanks. I wanna magnify your worth. I wanna bring you more than words. I enter the gates, come reckless with praise. I bring a heart that wants you first, all for your glory. Your glory. All for your glory. Jesus, your glory. All for your glory.
This is my worship. This is my offering. In every moment, I withhold nothing. I'm learning to trust you, even when I can't see it. And even in suffering, I have to believe it. If you say it's wrong, then I'll say no. If you say release, I'm letting go. If you're in it with me, I'll begin. And when you say to jump, I'm diving in. If you say be still, then I will wait. If you say to trust, I will obey. I don't want to follow my own ways. I'm done chasing feelings. Spirit, lead me. Oh, oh, oh. Spirit, lead me. Felt like a burden, but once I could grasp it, you took me further than I was asking. And simply to see you, it's worth it all. My life is an altar. Let your fire fall. If you say it's wrong, then I'll say no. If you say release, I'm letting go. If you're in it with me, I'll begin. If you say to jump, I'm diving in. If you say be still, then I will wait. If you say to trust, I will obey. Teach me how to follow in your ways. I'm done chasing feelings. Spirit, lead me. Oh, oh, Spirit.
Spirit, lead me.
Oh, Spirit, lead me. When all hope is gone and your word is all I've got, I have to believe. Still bring water from the rock, satisfy my thirst. You love me at my worst, and even when I don't remember, you remind me of my word. I don't trust my ways, I'm traded in my faults. I lay down everything, 'cause you're all that I want. I've landed on my knees. This is the cup you have for me. And even when it don't make sense, I'm gonna let your spirit lead. 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 Spirit, lead me. Spirit, lead me. Spirit, lead me. Spirit, lead me. If you say it's wrong, then I'll say no. If you say release, I'm letting go. If you're in it with me, I'll begin. And when you say to jump, I'm diving in. If you say be still, then I will wait. If you say to trust, I will obey. You're the only truth, the life, the way. I'm done chasing feelings. Spirit, lead me. Yeah.
Spirit, lead me.
Spirit, Spirit, lead me. Oh, Spirit, lead me.
I hope that song is the desire of your heart, that the Spirit would lead you. The Apostle Paul tells us the Holy Spirit will lead us and guide us and direct us. And that when the Spirit leads us, we'll fulfill and experience God's best for our lives. And if we've ever needed to be led by the Spirit, we need it right now during this time with all the challenges that we face. But honestly, every moment of every day, we need to follow God's lead. Let's just take a moment and pray together. Father, thank you once again that you have promised us a divine helper, a divine friend. That Jesus said, you're not on your own, that I'll not abandon you or orphan you, but I will send you a promised helper, and he will not only be with you, he will be in you. And I thank you that you lead us, and you guide us, and you direct us, and you help us. I pray for each and every one today that they would experience your divine presence, and they would experience your power that we need to fulfill the purposes and plans you have for us. And may each and every one today experience your amazing favor and blessing. And especially, we pray again for our moms, for each and every mother. And we thank you for them and for each and every one. In Jesus' name, amen.
If you would like for us to partner in prayer with you, just go to benitavalley.com and scroll down to prayer requests to share yours. Hey parents, be sure to check out Bonita Valley Kids on Facebook, Instagram, and benitavalley.com. There are activities, encouragements, and great ways for you and your kids to stay connected. Even though we've made adjustments to help stop the spread of COVID-19, BVCC is not closed. Our meeting schedule has changed, but our ministry goes on. It's more important than ever as people search for solid ground in these unsteady times. That's why we're so incredibly grateful for your faithful financial support during these days. Obviously, there's no way to pass around an offering bucket during an online service. We have several other methods for giving, and we're counting on you to choose one. You can visit our website at benitavalley.com/giving. You can text Bonita Valley to 77977. You can give by using the BVCC app, or you can mail offerings to BVCC at 4744 Bonita Road, Bonita, California, 91902.
I want to introduce our special guest speaker for this Mother's Day. And I want to introduce her in the way she introduces herself on her website, jodidetrick.com. Here's what Jodi writes about herself. Wife, mom, Grammy, speaker, author of The Jesus-Hearted Woman, resistor of the safe life, user of the last drop of each day's allotment of grace, God adventurer who's learned that starting over in multiples is okay, ordinary and sometimes tired woman who believes you should never leave home without a loaded Starbucks card. I really wish that Jodi was able to be here in person to share with us. And I wish you were here in person and all the moms, and hopefully we will again be together in person very soon. But until that can happen, the next best thing is what we've been doing for the last several weeks, having an online service and an online message. And Jodi has put her message online for us and recorded it so that you and I can experience what I believe is a very timely word from God. It's not just for moms. Now, it is for moms and grandmothers and single mothers and spiritual mothers, as you will hear. But I think it's a message for every one of us. And it challenges us. And I hope that you just open your heart and open your mind and experience what God has for us today through this very, very special word from our very special guest, Jodi Detrick.
Hello, Bonita Valley Community Church. Oh my goodness, I wish I could see your faces today. I was invited to be with you on Mother's Day, and since that's not possible, I'm glad we can still connect in this way. But I have to say, I will be glad when in person is a thing again. Pastor Jeff, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about things that matter and to insist on hope. Mother's Day is such a special day for so many of us. I think about my own precious mother and how much I love and miss her. I think this will be my first Mother's Day without either being with my mom or having some of my kids with me, so that's very different this year. But I can't think of anything that's a greater privilege in my life than being a mom. I love our adult children and their families and our 3 granddaughters, and because of this pandemic, we've been having weekly Zoom meetings where we kind of check in with each other and play games. It's not quite the same, but it still helps this mama's heart. But before you jump to the conclusion that I have the ideal family and we've never had any struggles in our relationships, let me set you straight. It's a little like this. A few years ago, I stopped by the grocery store on a hot summer day and decided to pick up a gallon of ice cream. And when I opened the freezer door, this large tub of ice cream was precariously placed, and it was one of the big guys with kind of the metal rim around the bottom. Well, it rolled out and landed squarely on top of my foot. And right there in the middle of Safeway, I almost passed out. Later, I was thinking, how can anything so sweet hurt so much? How can anything so sweet hurt so much? And you know what? The same is true in this thing called parenthood. Dawn and I have had our share of struggles and challenges on this road of parenthood. And being a mom has been the cause of the biggest smiles I've ever smiled and the most tears I've ever cried. And you know what? However, after I nearly broke my foot with a gallon of ice cream, do you think I gave up on ice cream? No, maybe I should have. And I want to tell you today that if you are struggling with some things that have just not been the way that they should be in the relationship between your mom or with your children, don't give up, because things can get very sweet again. I mentioned today that this is a special day for so many of us, and that's so true, but I'm also very aware that this can be a really hard day for a lot of us. You may be sitting there and watching this and struggling with issues of infertility, saying, I wish I was a mom. Or maybe you are sad because your mom no longer is on this planet anymore. She passed away and you're really missing her today. Or maybe you don't have the kind of relationship with your mom that you wish you had. Or maybe you just feel the struggles of your own inadequacy as a parent especially heightened on a day like today. Well, whatever aspect of that you're struggling with, I want you to remember that God sees you. I love the story of Hagar in the Bible. She was one of the first mentioned in Scripture to be thrust into the role of being a single parent, at least temporarily. And it's so striking what she said when she was out in the desert with her child, waiting to die. Genesis 16:13, she says, "You are the God who sees me. I now see the one who sees me." So for whatever reason, if you're feeling pain about some aspect of today, remember that the Lord sees you and He sees your pain. And just as He provided a well of hope for Hagar when she was in such a time of desperation, the Lord can provide restoration and life and hope for you today too. So I have a few questions for you as we begin. Why is it this past week that kids who have been sheltered in place all over this country have grabbed construction paper and their crayons and some scissors and have scrawled pictures of flowers in red and yellow and purple and have written across the top in big letters, "I love you, Mom"? Why is it that a multitude of grown men put on their masks and rushed out to the grocery store last night to pick out a card that says something like, "Dear wife or mom," I don't say it often enough, but on this Mother's Day, you know who you are, right, guys? And why is it that so many of us will dial our phones on Mother's Day and wait for a familiar, beloved voice on the other end to say a hopeful hello? I'll be doing that with my own precious 88-year-old mother who lives in another state today. Well, I can answer all those questions with 2 words. Mamas matter. Mamas matter. They shape us and they shape the world in profound ways, either for good or sadly, sometimes for evil. And so what is it about mamas that matter so much? Specifically, what are the marks of a spiritual mama who leaves a legacy of hope? You know, there are many traits that we could talk about today, and I've chosen 3 of them that mean a lot to me. I love what Jill Churchill says about motherhood. She said, "There is no way to be a perfect mother and a million ways to be a good one." So what are the marks of a spiritual mama? Well, here's the first one. She laughs freely. She laughs freely. I think a spiritual mama will choose laughter over luxury any day. Proverbs 31:28 says of the virtuous woman, "Her children rise up and call her blessed." And there are many nuances in that word blessed, including the favor of God, but there's also that flavor of joy and of happiness, of exuding goodness. Do you remember the story of one of the spiritual mamas in the Bible named Sarah? You know, she made a lot of mistakes along the way, but God was faithful to his promises to her and Abraham to give them a son when he was 100 and she was 90. Now that's funny. And it could also have a few benefits. I mean, since stretch marks may not show up as much amid the wrinkles, I don't know. Or maybe when she told Abraham, "Honey, he looks just like you," she would have been telling the truth because they would have both been bald and toothless, right? But I love that Sarah named her son Isaac, which means laughter. And she said in Genesis 21:6, "And Sarah declared, 'God has brought me laughter, and all those who hear about this will laugh with me.'" You're right, Sarah, we're still laughing with you. Sweet mamas out there today, how will your children remember you? Will they remember only a stressed out, sour, always frustrated mom? Or will they remember a mom who laughs freely? I love what author Anne Lamott says. She says, "Earth is forgiveness school, and you might as well start at the dinner table. That way you can do this work in comfortable pants." That is so good. And it really applies to this time of staying home 24/7 with the people we love dearly, but who can get on our very last good nerve. And can I get an amen out there? And don't ask me how I know that, right? You moms with your littles, you are my heroes right now. How did your home go from having maybe just 3 or 4 kids to having over 300? Or at least it seems that way on some days. This is not easy. So thank you for getting out of bed every morning and feeding those rumbling little tummies, and for wiping those little noses and bottoms, for refereeing those territorial toy wars one more time, and really for just keeping an even keel in your family on really rough and strange waters, keeping some sanity in your own life. Bravo, Mom. What you're doing every day matters. Thank you for your courage and for showing up. You know, when I think about a legacy of one who laughs freely in my own family, I think about my precious grandmother who is now with Jesus, and she was always just cheerful. She was just kind. She always had a good word. She was one to laugh at the slightest thing. She was a happy, cheerful woman. However, I have to tell you the rest of the story. As she got older and eventually was in her 90s and dementia had set in, and she needed to be cared for in a residential care facility. And in this particular nursing home, the staff had discovered that if they gave the female residents baby dolls to hold, it was soothing to them, it was comforting. And sure enough, we would go in sometimes and my grandmother would be holding this baby doll and rocking it, singing to it, maybe sometimes trying to feed it some of her own food. But one day, my mom went in to visit her, and my grandmother was in a really grumpy, sour mood, which was so unlike her. So my mom said, "What's wrong?" And she said, I don't know who keeps dropping off these kids for me to babysit, but I'm sick of it. Okay, so nobody is cheerful 24/7 all the days of your life, right? But I know that we have a God who can redesign our disposition, and I know that we have a God who can give us a hard reset on really hard days. You know that old saying, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy? You know, there's a lot of truth to that. And kids can give us lots of reasons to laugh, right? And the Bible tells us that laughter and a merry heart does good like a medicine. So especially during this time of the pandemic, we need to take our medicine. I remember back to a time when my husband and I were leading a church in Chehalis, Washington at the time, and we were trying to encourage the children to learn Bible verses. And so when they could say their memory verse for the week, we had little cards we would give them that they could exchange for a treat. And so let me tell you though, we got some really interesting versions of memory verses. One of my favorite though was probably a little girl, maybe about 4 years old, and her Bible verse was pray without ceasing. But it came out like this: pray without cussing, which is always a good idea if you can help it, right? A lot of times in parenting, we don't know whether to laugh or cry, truly. And I tell you, if you have the option, just go ahead and laugh. Exasperation and even embarrassment comes with the territory of being a parent. Now, our children were raised in church, so we have a lot of those funny church stories. At least they're funny now. I remember the time that we went out to lunch with a group of friends who were deacons in the church, the leaders in the church, and our little girl who was about 8 years old asked them one by one, so how much came in the offering today? As if that's something that we talked about freely in our home, when honestly we really didn't, but oh my goodness, how do you explain that? And then our son Mark, when he was about maybe 2, we got a call from the church nursery to come quickly because he had got his head wedged between the rungs of a little chair and couldn't get it out. And so they had to take tools and take apart that chair while he's wailing loudly the whole time. And then there's the story of Jana, our youngest, who stuffed a pop bead up her nose in the middle of a Sunday morning service and came running up to me frantically pointing at her face while I was playing the piano. Oh my word. Lots of reasons to remember and laugh. You know, kids can also ask us questions that are hard to answer. Our son asked me questions like, who invented stairs? And can spiders spit? You know, I really still don't know the answer to those questions. Again, life gives us options to laugh or cry so many times. And sure, there's a time to cry, no doubt about it. But when we have that choice, choose to laugh, choose joy. You know, in family life, it's often today's humiliations and hardships that become tomorrow's hilarity and happy memories. So you might as well get a head start on the laughter. Don't discount the healthy perspective about life in a difficult world, about endurance and about stamina that you are transferring to those closest to you when you simply laugh with them. Your laughter is a hopeful hint that joy is still accessible in the middle of the muddle of life. So would you be watching for a reason to laugh this week? Mamas matter, and it matters when you laugh with the ones you love. Spiritual mamas laugh freely. Here's the second trait of a spiritual mama. She looks deeply. She looks deeply. She sees things that others miss. There's a strange disease called prosopagnosia, and it's a disorder of perception where the ability to recognize faces is impaired, and it often happens after a brain injury, but there's also a rare form that people can be born with. And in the most severe forms, those with prosopagnosia can't even recognize the faces of their own family members or even their own face in a picture or in the mirror. how different that is from a mom, right? Who doesn't have that disease. You know, we can scan a sea of faces and we can pick out our child's face among hundreds or thousands. We see them and we know who they are. And you know what? I don't know how God does it, but He does the same thing for you and me. You're not just an indistinguishable part of a crowd sitting on planet Earth today. Somehow He sees you and He takes your face in His hands and He says, there you are. You're mine. You belong to me. And you know, spiritual mamas are kind of like that. They see things that others miss. Down through the ages, moms have been accused of having eyes in the back of their heads, right? And that's kind of true. Again, it's because mamas look deeper. Jochebed was another spiritual mama in the Bible, and you know, there might not ever be a perfect time for bringing a child into the world, but there are certainly some seasons and settings where that is more challenging than others. Exodus 2, 1 through 10 tells the story of Jochebed, who had a baby named Moses in the wrong place at the worst of times when Hebrew infanticide of male babies was the law of the land. And there must have been so much angst, so many sobs of worry and countless sleepless nights behind the 10 verses that tell this mom's story. But here's the part of that story that stands out to me from Exodus 2, 1 through 3. A man from the family of Levi married a Levite woman. And the woman became pregnant and had a son. And she saw there was something special about him, and she hid him for 3 months. She saw there was something special about him. Other translations say she saw that he was a fine child, or she saw that he was a beautiful baby. Okay, but doesn't every mother think her baby is special and beautiful? Doesn't every mom always look for and see the best in their children? How I wish that were true. I'll never forget sitting across the table from this lovely young woman who seemed to have it all together on the outside. She was drop-dead gorgeous. She had a loving husband and healthy kids, and they lived in a beautiful home. She had a good job that she really enjoyed. But as tears ran down her face that day, she told me about her struggle with depression and the dysfunctional family that she'd grown up in, and the struggles that her mom had with mental illness. And she said, the last time I visited my mom in the hospital when she lay dying, her last words to me were, I never did love you anyway. That broke my heart. It still does. And I want to remind you that even if parental love has failed you, you have a Father in heaven who loves you and who sees you and who calls the good things out in your life. He calls you the beloved and not the berated. But back to Jochebed. Remember the setting. She was literally risking death to defy the Pharaoh's orders. But she looked deeper. She saw there was something special about her child. And for those of you who know this biblical story, it's amazing. And if you don't know it, you can read it in that same chapter in Exodus. And it says that she hid him in a basket in the bulrushes. You know the rest of the story. But I don't believe it was just his physical appearance that made this mom risk everything to save her child's life. I believe it was God-given spiritual insight into his future, and she probably didn't know all that meant, but she looked deeper and she saw that her son was marked by God to be a leader. And so when she placed him in that makeshift waterproof basket and hid him among the reeds in the Nile, she didn't know that the little life that she was saving would save a multitude of people and would lead God's children out of slavery. You know, like Jochebed, God allows us as spiritual mamas to look deeper, to see things that others miss. And one way that we can do that is just by asking questions and then asking more questions. Don't assume that you already know everything about your child, no matter what age they are, what they're thinking and feeling, especially during this pandemic. I'm so thankful for my own sweet mother who looked deeper and saw more in the life of her youngest child, who was an accident, by the way, and oops, that's me. She saw more than a scrawny, sickly baby. She saw more than a shy little girl who had a big imagination but loved nothing more to hide in the corner with a bag of M&Ms and a book. She saw a leader in me, and she saw a writer in me long before others did. And like Jochebed, spiritual mamas also see when their kids are in danger. They notice when their children are scared or struggling. They see behind the bravado and the attitude. They are alert to unhealthy habits and the influence of wrong friends. Spiritual mamas know that their children are growing up in a dangerous world. And when we see those things, we have the choice to either become worriers or warriors, prayer warriors. And so many times I have to remind myself, though, don't worry upward and call it prayer. Really pray and really entrust those that you love into God's hands. And we also can look for creative ways to help our kids survive and thrive, just as Jochebed did. We can look to God for his miraculous help when we've done all that we can, and that's not enough. This story of this spiritual mama shows us that God steps in to help when we've done all we can and we come up short. Would you take a little time this week to look deeper into your children's lives and ask them some good questions? Find out what's going on in their hearts. And here's a couple of questions that might help with that. You could ask, what to you is the hardest part about this time when we're all needing to stay at home? Or if you could change anything in life right now, what would that be? Or what is one thing that's making you happy right now? You know, mamas matter, and one of the reasons that they matter so much is because they laugh freely, but also they look deeply. And so here is the final trait of a spiritual mama that I want to talk about this morning, and it's actually probably the most important one. It's that she loves largely. She loves largely. Titus 2:4 is an interesting verse. It says, "The older women must train the younger women to love their husbands and their children." Now, in our culture, sometimes we tend to think of love as this gushing emotion that you either have or you don't have. And yet, this verse lets us know that love can be trained. It can be learned, and it requires that kind of growth and training. Now, confession, I am not a runner. I like to walk. I am an ambler, one who strolls, but I have friends who are avid runners, and if for some reason I wanted to run a marathon, which honestly I don't, it is not on my bucket list and probably will never be, but if I decided that I wanted to do that, I wouldn't be able to just get up one morning and say, hey, I feel like being a runner today. No, I would need to train and to develop my skills and increase stamina by doing hard things day after day, taking the next step. I think God wants spiritual mamas to learn, to train, to love largely, to understand that we can grow, we can keep learning as we learn to love largely for the long haul. And thank God that we have Jesus to show us what loving largely looks like. And please listen to this, friends, because it's so important. Sometimes our own spiritual mamas and daddies are not the ones who gave physical birth to us. In fact, some of the most amazing, effective spiritual parents I know have never had biological children of their own, but they have learned how to love largely, and their love casts a wide net. And you know, even when we do have our own sweet biological children to love, loving largely means that we also make room in our hearts for kids and for others who are not our own kids. I want to say right here, Yay for you adoptive parents. Yay for you foster moms and dads who are loving largely. Thank you for casting your net widely and bringing in those who so much need the impact of your love in their lives. You are making a difference. Back to that verse in Titus, these days I'm definitely falling into the category of the older woman who's supposed to train the younger women. And what I've learned along the way is that the more I love Jesus and the more I let him love me, the better I am at loving others. He's the source and the example for my love, and I just get to be the conduit. And so yes, I love pouring into my own children and my 3 grandgirls, but to my delight, God has also allowed me to become a spiritual mama to many young women in my life. Some of them nearby, others across the country and even in other countries, and I am able to mentor them on a regular basis. And spiritual mamas love largely because they know the heart is God designed in a way that expands to make room for others. One of my favorite loving largely stories is about a quiet, shy young woman named Nettie. She moved to the Kiamichi Mountains of Oklahoma in 1936 when it was this rugged, wild place, often harboring moonshiners and outlaws, plus a lot of wild animals and rattlesnakes. And Nettie was a believer in Jesus in her early 20s, and her husband was not a Christian, was not a Christ follower, and few, if any, of the mountain folk that lived in those hills knew the Lord. And they lived miles from any town. Nettie didn't have a car, and there was no place to take her 2 young girls to church. And so when Nettie heard about an old abandoned schoolhouse in the area, she got permission to use it to start a little Sunday school. And so soon she started traipsing through the woods, her 2 little girls in tow, knocking on the doors of those rugged mountain cabins and inviting the little children who lived there to come to this little Sunday school. Now, Nettie could have just stayed home and taught her own little girls about Jesus, but she also cared about the other children that lived in her community. And so early on Sunday mornings, she would get her little girls up and get them ready, and they would walk 2 miles through the woods, crossing over streams on fallen logs. Nettie would be carrying her .22 rifle for protection in case she ran into any of those wild animals. And when she got to that little schoolhouse, there was no printed Sunday school material, and so she would just tell the children stories from the Bible. They would sing songs a cappella, and she would write out Bible verses on little slips of paper and assign them to the kids to memorize. And those children kept coming back week after week. And slowly, little by little, the hearts of the parents were won over by this quiet young woman who loved their kids so much. Eventually, Nettie even persuaded the adults, including her husband, who still was not a believer, to come to a series of meetings designed just for them. And she invited a visiting preacher to come in and tell the story of the good news of Jesus. Many people, including Nettie's husband, who went on to become a pastor all his life, came to faith in those meetings. And from that little group of believers, a church was eventually planted a couple of years later in a nearby town in a borrowed barn. And in that little church, Nettie's oldest daughter put her faith and trust in Jesus at the age of 7. Now, I should tell you at this point that Nettie was my grandmother, and her oldest daughter, Louise, was my mom. And years later, a young man just getting out of the military would walk through the doors of that little church and would find a relationship with Jesus and put his faith and trust in God. He would marry Louise and become my dad, and he too would become a pastor and spend the rest of his life serving Jesus. And today there is still a thriving, lovely church in that little town, birthed out of that original group of little children and the woman who learned to love them largely. And without really knowing it, I like to say that my grandmother was a church planter before church planters were cool. And I think about her and her influence because it still affects me every day, even though she's with Jesus right now. She was the one who loved largely and laughed freely. And I don't think that I would be talking with you today without her Jesus-hearted influence in my life. So I want to ask you today, where can your love cast a wider net this week? Loving largely usually starts small, so be on the watch and ask God to show you where to begin. And if you pay attention to what is stirring in your heart, He will show you that, and you will learn to love largely. So, dear mamas, and that includes biological moms and foster moms and adoptive moms and neighborhood moms and spiritual mamas and aunties and Grammies like me, I want you to know that you matter. You matter. You are the guardians and givers of an amazing legacy. So, keep laughing freely, keep looking deeply, and keep loving largely. And if you're struggling in any of those areas today, know that God is standing by, ready to help. Let's pray together. Dear Father, there's so much sadness in our broken world right now, and sometimes we even forget how to laugh. But you are the healer of broken lives and broken relationships. Please heal any hearts that are hurting today and restore joy and even laughter where there has been such pain. Help us all to look deeply beyond the surface to the precious people you've put into our lives. Let us really see our kids, Lord. Show us the best ways to encourage and to speak life into them. And when we see danger, make us warriors, not worriers. Remind us that you are the good shepherd who always fights for the lambs. And God, train us to love largely. Remind us that whatever else we do while we're on this planet, that loving is our real job. Thank you, God, that you are love, and you will always be the never-ending source for us and for those that we want to love largely. God, I ask for a special blessing upon each mama and each spiritual mama watching this today. May she know that she matters to you and to the rest of us. In the life-giving name of Jesus, we pray. Amen. So keep laughing freely, keep looking deeply, and keep loving largely. And when you do this, those around you will rise up and call you blessed, and you will be a blessing in their lives. And you know what? I think God will be smiling too. So God bless you, Bonita Valley Community Church, and happy Mother's Day, everyone.
I want to thank Jodi. What a great word. Not just for moms, but for all of us. But I especially want to encourage each and every mother once again to realize that you are absolutely essential and that you are absolutely perfect. Not flawless, but you are absolutely perfect for what God called and created you to do and be. And today we honor you. And I also want to say to each and every one of you, moms and dads and singles and seniors and students, if you've never surrendered your life to Jesus, if you've never said yes to God's amazing plans and purposes, love and grace for your life, I encourage you to do that today. In fact, I know that's one of the greatest prayers that moms pray, is that their children would not only be part of their family, but part of God's forever family, part of God's spiritual family. And how we do that is simply pray this prayer from your heart. Jesus, forgive me. Forgive me for my sin. My sin is my choosing my own way. It's missing the target of what God has for me. Forgive me of my sin. I accept that Jesus paid for me in ways I cannot pay for myself. And I will follow you with my whole heart. And I want to encourage you to pray that simple prayer just right now. There's so many moms. Some of them are already in heaven, but their prayers are still reaching into God's throne room for you and for me. And so once again, I want to say, from our family of faith to you and your family, a happy Mother's Day. Can't wait to get back together again, and we'll share a special treat with you when we can. Until next time, may God bless you and make you a blessing.